Ed Greenwood is the co-creator of the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, the creator of Elminster, and one of the most significant figures in Dungeons & Dragons history. The DDO team is bringing his classic adventure, Haunted Halls of Eveningstar, to life, and Ed has agreed to become the Dungeon Master for the adventure. We're here in Canada to record Ed doing the voice tracking and chat with him a little bit about the Haunted Halls. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to do D&D anytime.
What do you remember about writing the Haunted Halls of Eveningstar back in the day? And what was it like crafting a module for Dungeons & Dragons during that time?
When you look back, you never forget your first, when it's terribly exciting to do your first dungeon crawl, and your, 16th million dungeon crawl is a little bit more, open the door, what's behind the door? So from that point of view, I'm also sort of aware of the limitations of, we can't make your computer overheat because we're accessing so much memory. So I can't fill every room with snuff boxes that just got left behind and blood stains where the dying person whose blood it was, who's no longer there, his body's been dragged away, presumably eaten, tried to write with his fingertip his last will and testament or where the treasure's hidden. I used to put that in every room, so much so it looked like going through a real-world North American subway station or back alley with graffiti all over it. And there was tons of stuff, and you have to be selective. And it's sort of like, if your house is burning down and everything you love is going up in smoke, what do you grab first? I'm in that situation. I can only grab 3 things. Which 3 do I grab? So it was a bit of that for me.
It must be exciting, though, when all this, you talked about how difficult it was to make those cuts originally. To be able to at least bring some of that back has to be pretty fun, though.
Oh, yeah. This is the reward for me. It's the fun of, hey, I get to play in the Haunted Halls again. And the Haunted Halls is sort of new. Because I'm not just taking out what we printed in the original published module and running it again. I mean, you always make changes when you're running it. The players portray their characters, they do something weird, you want to pick up on it. So that, if on the way into the dungeon he winks at the shepherdess, all the way through the dungeon, monsters are going to be winking at him in the same way, and he's going, oh yeah, there's a conspiracy here, what's going on? And you're just having fun. You can't put that in the dungeon because you can't say, you don't have room to say, if da-da-da, then, if da-da-da, then, you just don't have the space for it. And of course it would drive you guys nuts for the programming. Right. 42 choices every time you open the door, but you can still have the fun.
One of the most exciting things about bringing
new stuff in.
The Haunted Halls of Eveningstar to Dungeons & Dragons Online is it gives you the chance to add some content that had to be cut during the writing of the original module. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I had proposed it as a 96-page campaign module, something I did later with Halls of the High King for the Moonchase. And I had all these subplots, all these NPCs, everything in the village, so you could literally spend 6 or 7 real years of game time there. And of course, all that had to hit the cutting room floor, and it was just the dungeon. Now, one of the things that also hit the cutting room floor is I had a warm-up dungeon just in the face of the cliff there that leads up to the Caverns of the Claws, which was the same sort of cracks you get here in Canada, in Ontario, in the Niagara Escarpment, where the water runs down into limestone, freezes every year, pushes it a little further away, and pushes it, and the boulders fall in from the top. So you have these little cracks that run along parallel inside the cliff. And I had postulated that trolls that were layering in them and dragging people back there and eating them and all the rest of it. And that was all it was just a little warm-up thing. And of course that had to hit the cutting room floor too. Right. And so I was on the phone to the people at TSR, went on vacation, went on maternity leave, got sick. Everybody else was filling in. And I was frantically on the phone to them, begging them to cut down the ads at the back so I could have 2 more pages, because they just told me brightly that Monsters now had a page each of a full official write-up, and I went, no! I mean, great. And I was trying to wedge more space in, because I wanted to have all the NPCs like Tesserel Wintle, Dunman Kiriag from the Lonesome Tanker just pretty much had to go away. Yeah. All this stuff, and I had to cut down on the new monsters. I think the Loch Lurker and the Tressim ended up in, I had something like 6 others, and of course they had to vanish from the dungeon too.
Back when the adventure was originally being written, computer games were in a much earlier state. What is it like seeing your creation brought to life in the digital world today?
When computer games first started, I had problems with a lot of the stuff because some of you may remember Castle Wolfenstein, which was a great fun, but at times the only way you could tell if you were firing properly is to wait for something to turn red because the pixels were so large. You couldn't tell. You literally couldn't tell. As things get better and better graphically, for Dungeons & Dragons in particular, the atmosphere of being in a dungeon can be brought out more and more. You can see the mold on the walls. You can start to do subtle things rather than hello, clue over here. See, it's flashing. You can put really subtle stuff in where somebody can literally run through it a couple times, and then they'll be sitting having dinner a week later, and they go, wait a minute, I think all those mold patches, I think there's a pattern. And they go running back to their computer and they play it again, and yes! And you could actually put those layers in now because the graphics will support it. And that I love.
Tell us about working with the Dungeons & Dragons online development team and bringing this adventure to life.
The chance to sit around and talk D&D is great fun. Some people sit around and tell fishing stories or hunting stories or when I was there when this football game or that race or whatever. To me, it's just fun to sit down and talk over the possibilities. And there's a sort of tiny inward thrill when you're sitting and talking to someone who's obviously read your stuff and knows it, and enjoys it. And it's like, cool, what can we do to make this, better, cooler, whatever. And that's just fun. I could do that all day long. So yeah, it's great fun. We've done some email stuff back and forth, and we've done one long phone call where we batted stuff back and forth, and that was just like fun.
For sure.
It's one of those things. You have the dream job. You're getting paid for doing something you love. And that's what it is.
So when the adventure is actually released to the public here, what are you most looking forward to people seeing and experiencing in the Haunted Halls of Eveningstar?
To be perfectly honest, I'm most looking forward to younger gamers, new gamers, who haven't happened to come across the Haunted Halls before, who just have a good time, because it's a good old-fashioned dungeon crawl. So that's the thing that'll, most turn my crank. To have kids that are of the age of, I think, oh, these must be grandchildren of mine, or great-grandchildren of mine, or somebody's great, and I see that light in their eyes because it's their first dungeon crawl, or they're an early dungeon crawl, and they're really excited. And that'll be my first thing. But the second thing will be the veteran gamers who've played through the Haunted Halls before. Now, every time something's adapted, and we saw it with the Lord of the Rings movies or whatever, somebody goes, that's not how I pictured, fill in the blank. And yeah, that always happens because we imagine things differently. We have to. But if somebody can say, oh, wow, I never realized you could do that with that room, or nice, we're going to be playing this again. And when you hear those sort of reactions, that to me, because to me it's all about story. I mean, we're not in gaming to get rich and famous, because most of us won't get either one. We're in gaming because we love gaming, and when you see somebody else having a good time, as long as you can resist the temptation to say, let me tell you about my character, because they can't share that experience because they weren't there at your gaming table. When you know that they had a great time at their gaming table, we all win.
Thank you very much, Ed, for taking some time with us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.